Hi, everybody. Professor Pipes here for another Piper's Office Hours. I tried something new with tone and mood this year, and it worked out really well. So I'm excited to share it with you if you're looking for something new to do for these topics. That's different from a traditional essay. All right, so tone and mood are words that they should be familiar with already. They should have used them before, but it's something that they still struggle with. So I front loaded it, of course. We did some different activities involving tone and mood, but then one of them was this formative activity with partners. So in this case, they were focusing on tone of voice, which really helps them to differentiate between, the author or speaker versus the atmosphere created for the reader, because it's a literal speaker, and so that helps them to connect it. So I gave them a set of tone words and mood words. They're just from a website that I found that had a bunch of tone words and mood words. And so they had access to those. And then I gave them a set of sentences, and they were partnered up. Each kid, back and forth, they would read one of the sentences while trying to demonstrate one of the tone words from the list. So it got them actively looking at different possibilities for tone words and mood words as they were choosing their tone and then trying to figure out the speaker's tone and then describe their mood. So it was a really simple activity, pretty quick. They just said their sentences back and forth, choosing a tone each time. And then the listener would have to write down the tone that they heard. So again, choose from the tone word list. Again, looking at these tone words that they could use in the future. And then the mood that they felt in response to the tone. And I gave them examples in class and stuff like that too. So very simple activity, focusing on the difference between tone and mood. Then I wanted to bring them into the idea of a color board because that's what we were going to move towards. So I had them choose 6 tone words and 6 mood words and just highlight them in a color that they felt represented that tone or that mood. Which then brought us to movie day. So we watched a film. It actually ended up being just under 2 class periods. And every 10 minutes, they had to have colored in a box representing that 10 minutes of the film, 10-ish minutes of the film. So I gave them a physical copy of this, and they had colored pencils or markers. So they just colored it in as they went for a mood from some point in that 10 minutes. I emphasized that there might be multiple moods. There are multiple events that kind of had different moods. So they're kind of choosing one. Then they had to write a mood word at the top. They didn't have access to the list anymore, but they'd had a lot of practice looking at it. And so I kind of wanted them to see how well they knew these mood words. And I also knew in my head, this is a rough draft. Didn't tell them that ahead. So they had to write a mood word. What did they know? What did they think it was? An emotion word. And then they had to just write a few words to describe events that establish the mood. So essentially, I'm kind of having them write a bunch of like body paragraphs about the mood, where the mood is their topic sentence, and just a few words to describe events is basically their concrete details, their evidence. They just don't have to write it out in a whole long paragraph form. So it was easier to grade. That's a plus. And they felt like it was easier to do because they didn't have that, it's an essay sitting on top of them. So they did this as we watched. And then after we were done, I gave them the digital copy. And so I emphasized that this is the difference between their rough draft and a final draft. So they could now look at the mood word list and choose perhaps better mood words. Some of them were fine. Some they needed to modify. Choose their mood words. If they needed to rephrase their examples, their evidence, that was fine too. And then they used the table properties to change the background color for the different cells. And that was it. So final drafts. But now this is only their mood summative. So here's tone, part 2. So for tone, I had them choose 3 words that they felt were overarching tones for the film. And then for each one, they had to choose 2 screenshots. So I give them examples from Shrek. So they had to choose tone word, and then they had to find 2 screenshots that they felt backed that up. So they had to go searching. Then they had to write their support. So again, not full paragraphs or anything, just a few words to explain how that screenshot demonstrated that tone. So they might write about the event that's occurring in the picture. They might write about colors that were chosen. They might write about facial expressions of the characters. Any of these things, I gave them examples and talked about, the examples that I had on here too. And it went really well. They had great answers. They're again essentially writing a bunch of body paragraphs for me in a much faster way for both them and me. And it showed that they, most of them had achieved mastery of tone and mood. So if you're looking for something unique and different to do for tone and mood, I hope you'll check this out. Let me know how it goes. Bye.